This is a story of wrongful accusation and ultimate vindication, a drama that explores themes of racial injustice, systemic bias, and the power of truth. At its core, it is a redemption story, not just for the protagonist, but also for the community that almost failed him. A black teenager is falsely accused by police of a crime he didn't commit. As public opinion turns against him and his future hangs in the balance, a piece of overlooked CCTV footage flips the narrative. The story unfolds around how he endures shame, fear, and betrayal, only to rise with the help of undeniable evidence and hidden allies. This story falls firmly within the drama genre, with strong elements of social realism and a touch of legal thriller. It reveals how deeply bias can run within society, and how the truth, no matter how buried, can eventually rise. The audience should feel the injustice deeply, burning with anger at what's being done to the protagonist. But alongside that outrage, there must be hope. Hope that the truth will emerge and justice will prevail. The emotional journey will fluctuate between frustration, fear, resilience, and ultimately, catharsis. Because this is not just fiction, it reflects a painful reality experienced by countless individuals across the world. It calls attention to the dangers of jumping to conclusions, of how perception shaped by race can destroy lives, and how technology, ironically, can sometimes become the only silent witness that tells the truth. In a world where assumptions can cost someone their future, truth becomes the most powerful weapon. This story isn't just about one teen. It's about everyone who's ever been unheard, unseen, and unfairly judged. The siren screamed before he even turned the corner. Jalen's sneakers slapped the concrete as he walked home from school, headphones in, hoodie up. Just another Tuesday, gray sky, heavy backpack, same sidewalk. But this time, there was something off. He noticed it when a black and white squad car rolled past him, then reversed. Then came the voice. "Hey, you, stop right there." Jalen froze. He yanked out an earbud, confused. "Me?" Two officers jumped out. One already had his hand on his gun. "What's your name?" the taller cop demanded. "Jalen. Jalen Harris." What's going on?" "Put your hands where we can see them." What? He barely got the words out before they spun him around and slammed him against the hood of the car. Cold metal kissed his cheek. The world narrowed to flashing lights and burning wrists. "Hey, Al, I didn't do anything," he cried out, panic rising like bile in his throat. A woman across the street paused, pulling her child closer. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just watched as they cuffed him like he was a criminal. His backpack fell to the ground, books scattering. Jalen's heart pounded. "Can someone tell me what this is about?" The shorter officer, stocky with a buzz cut, scrolled through something on his phone. "Armed robbery. Black male, gray hoodie, jeans, 5 feet 10 inches. That you?" Jalen blinked. That could be half the school. But it didn't matter. The cuffs stayed on. One officer radioed in. "We have the suspect in custody." "Suspect?" Jalen wanted to scream. His hands were going numb. His vision blurred from the tears he refused to let fall. The world was spinning too fast, and no one was asking him anything that mattered. They shoved him into the back seat like he was trash, like his name didn't matter. As the car pulled off, Jalen caught one last glimpse of his school backpack on the sidewalk, soaked by the gathering rain. He wasn't sure what hurt more, his wrist, his pride, or the fact that everyone saw but no one stepped in. At the station, they took his prints. Mugshot. Sat him down in a room with two-way glass. A camera blinked silently from the ceiling corner. The officers left him alone with his thoughts, his fear, and the weight of something far worse. Hopelessness. He didn't even get a call. He thought about his mom. She was probably texting him by now, probably wondering why he hadn't come home. She didn't drive. She walked to work. Would she come looking for him on foot? Would she know where to even start? The door opened. A man in a suit walked in. Not a lawyer. A detective. White. Mid-40s. Calm. He dropped a manila folder on the table like it was a weapon. "Tell me again where you were at 3:20 p.m. today." Jalen looked him in the eye. "I was at school. I have 5th period English." "Ask Mr. Collins." "You're saying you went straight from school to home?" "Yes. Like I always do." "And you didn't stop anywhere?" "No." The detective raised a brow. "Strange. We have 3 eyewitnesses who say you ran out of a liquor store with a black bag around 3:25. Jalen's voice cracked. "I don't even drink." The man leaned in, quiet and heavy. Then I suggest you pray someone finds proof. Because right now, it's not looking good for you. Jalen swallowed the lump in his throat. He was 16. 16. And somehow, that didn't protect him from any of this. Jalen Harris had always walked the same route home. Same cracked sidewalks, same bent stop sign on the corner of Myrtle and 42nd, same tired row of brown brick apartment buildings. He'd count his steps between the old liquor store and the church bus stop. Something about the rhythm kept him calm, kept him grounded. But none of that mattered anymore. Not now. Because now he was the suspect. Another name on another file in another precinct. 16. Junior at Jefferson High. Honor roll. Star of the school's robotics team. He had a quiet kind of brilliance. The kind that teachers noticed but the world overlooked. He wasn't loud, didn't party, didn't skip school. He was the kid you barely noticed until it was time to form project groups. Then everyone wanted Jalen on their side. But life hadn't made things easy. His mom, Carmen Harris, worked 2 jobs, morning shift at a nursing home and evenings cleaning offices downtown. She raised Jalen and his little sister, Maya, alone. Their father had left when Jalen was 8, disappearing like a ghost. No phone calls, no birthday cards. Just silence. Jalen didn't talk about that much. He didn't have time for drama. His life was about survival, about proving people wrong. He knew the world saw him as a statistic, a stereotype. One hoodie away from a headline. He hated that. He was smart, focused, careful, but now none of that protected him. The cold steel of handcuffs had turned all that effort into dust. And what scared Jalen most, more than the cuffs, more than the lies, was the possibility that the truth might not matter. That no matter how well he spoke, how clean his record was, how innocent he proved to be, he might still be punished for something he didn't do. He sat in the interrogation room with his knees bouncing. He kept his eyes on the one-way mirror, wondering who was behind it, wondering if they already decided who he was. He thought about his little sister. Maya was only 10. She looked up to him like he was a superhero. He walked her to school every morning, packed her lunch, helped her with math, even when he was dead tired. What would she think when she didn't see him tonight? Would his mom tell her he'd been detained? Or would she lie and say he was studying late? Jalen bit his lip so hard it bled. He couldn't let them destroy his life. He wouldn't. But what scared him more than anything was how easily it could happen. One description, one vague witness, one moment where he happened to match a profile. That was all it took. Inside, he battled 2 selves. The outer Jalen, calm, polite, trying to cooperate. And the inner Jalen, terrified, furious, screaming for justice. Because deep down, he wanted to believe in the system. Wanted to believe that doing the right thing mattered. That truth would win. But reality was different. He'd seen enough videos. Enough hashtags. Enough mothers crying on television after losing their sons to handcuffs, prison bars, or worse. And now, he was one false move away from joining that list. He didn't want to be a headline. He just wanted to go home. But how do you explain that to people who see your skin before they see your soul? His throat tightened. He wished he'd never worn the gray hoodie. He wished he'd taken a different route home. He wished. No, he needed someone to believe him. Then, the door opened again. A female officer walked in, holding a paper cup of water. She set it on the table and looked at him, not like a suspect, but like a human. You got anyone you want us to call? Jalen looked up, his voice hoarse. My mom. The officer nodded. We'll notify her. She's probably already on her way. Then she hesitated. Just hang in there, all right? Jalen almost believed her. Almost. But trust doesn't grow in a place built on fear. And Jalen had been afraid the moment that patrol car reversed. The moment he became a suspect in someone else's story. It all began with a siren. Not the kind you hear from far away. The distant cry that makes you pause for a moment and move on. This one was up close. Personal. Screeching behind Jalen like it had a purpose. Like it had a name. His name. He had just come out of Johnson's Corner Mart. Bought a bottle of orange Gatorade and a pack of gum. He'd nodded to the old security guard, Mr. Lester, on the way out. He was halfway down 42nd Street when he heard it. The patrol car pulled up fast. Tires squealing. 2 officers stepped out like it was already too late for explanations. Jalen paused, confused. Hands up, one of them shouted. Now, he dropped the bottle of Gatorade. It shattered at his feet, the orange liquid mixing with the dust. What did I do? He stammered. Don't move, the second officer barked, reaching for his cuffs. Jalen froze. 1 second, he was a kid walking home. The next, he was face down on the pavement, the cold weight of a knee on his back. His arms yanked behind him, wrists twisting in metal. The ground was rough. Bits of broken glass from his Gatorade scraped against his cheek. "You're matching the description," one cop said. "What description?" Jalen cried. "I didn't do anything." People began to stare. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "Is that Jalen Harris? From the robotics team?" But by then, it didn't matter. He was already cuffed, already assumed guilty. The officers pulled him up and shoved him in the back of the squad car without another word. No explanation. No chance to speak. No voice. Inside the cruiser, Jalen's mind raced. Was this a mistake? A prank? Was someone going to walk in and say sorry, wrong person? He replayed the moments over and over in his head. Had he seen anyone suspicious? Was someone else near the store? Then he remembered. There was someone. A man in a black hoodie. Tall. Older, maybe early 30s. He came out of the alley just as Jalen walked in. Their shoulders brushed for a second. Jalen hadn't thought much of it. But what if that guy was the real suspect? And somehow, Jalen had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. At the precinct, he was booked. Mugshot. Fingerprints. No rights read. No phone call. He kept asking for someone to call his mother. They said, later. He asked what he was being accused of. They said, you know what you did. But he didn't. Not until Officer Peters, mid-40s, buzz cut, cold eyes, finally slid a photo across the table. It was grainy, taken from a distance. A man in a hoodie sprinting out of the store. A small blur in his hand. A witness says you held up Johnson's Mart at gunpoint. Took cash and cigarettes. You were seen running from the scene around 5:47 p.m. Jalen blinked. What? I didn't do that. I was inside the store. I bought Gatorade. Ask Mr. Lester. Officer Peters leaned in. You saying the witness lied? I'm saying it wasn't me, Jalen said. Look at the footage. Check the cameras. Please. The officer leaned back, unconvinced. Until then, you're staying here. Jalen's fists clenched. That's when the panic really set in. Because it was clear, they hadn't even checked the store's security footage yet. They just had a vague witness and a blurry photo. And he had a face that fit the description. A kid. In a hoodie. With brown skin. Jalen swallowed back the anger, but it burned his chest like fire. He stared at the camera in the room's corner. At the one-way mirror. At the gray walls. And he realized, this wasn't just about him anymore. This was about all the kids like him who never made it out of rooms like this. Kids who didn't have a voice. Or proof. Or anyone who believed them. But Jalen did have something. The truth. And he was going to fight for it. No matter what. Jalen sat alone in the holding cell. Fluorescent lights buzzed above his head, washing everything in a sickly blue-white hue. The walls were cold, the bench colder. His hands still smelled like steel and sweat from the cuffs. He tried not to panic, but every minute felt like an hour. He thought about his mom. How she must be losing her mind by now. How she was probably calling the school, the police, even hospitals. And worst of all, she hadn't even been told where he was. He clenched his fists, remembering something his granddad once told him. You don't have to be loud to be strong, but you do have to be smart. That echoed in his head now. So Jalen waited and thought. He replayed the moment again, entering the store, seeing the man in the hoodie. That man had passed right by him. What if he was caught on the camera too? What if there was more than one camera? Suddenly, Officer Peters returned. You've got a visitor. Jalen jumped up, heart hammering. My mom. No. Your school counselor. Jalen blinked. Ms. Morales? She entered like a storm. Tight curls, glasses low on her nose, fire in her eyes. They wouldn't let your mother in, she said through gritted teeth. But I raised hell until they allowed me to speak with you. Jalen's eyes welled up. I didn't do anything. I know, she said, pulling out her phone. Now listen carefully. I'm getting you a lawyer. But until then, I need you to stay calm. Tell me everything. And he did. He told her about the hoodie man, the time on the receipt, the Gatorade. Mr. Lester. Everything. She nodded, writing fast. They haven't even pulled the CCTV from the store. They arrested you without a warrant or a proper match. Jalen swallowed hard. They won't listen. They will now, she said. She walked out with a mission in her stride. That same night, Ms. Morales called in a favor from an old college friend, Malik Bishop, a young black civil rights attorney who had once been falsely accused himself. Malik drove 2 hours to get to Jalen. The first thing he did was demand the store's security footage be reviewed. The cops resisted, said they were getting to it. But Malik pushed harder and harder. He called the news. He called the NAACP. He called social media. Soon, #FreeJalen started trending. And the pressure mounted. At 10:34 a.m. the next morning, someone from Internal Affairs came into the precinct. They demanded the store footage be pulled immediately. Jalen sat, his legs bouncing under the metal table, heart racing. Then the door opened. Officer Peters walked in, lips tight, eyes different now. A shift in the air. Behind him was the Internal Affairs officer. He turned to Jalen. "We reviewed the footage." Jalen braced himself. "The suspect who robbed the store? He left 2 minutes before you even walked in. You're not just innocent, you were still inside when the crime happened." Jalen exhaled, a slow, trembling breath that came from somewhere deep. Then Officer Peters muttered, "You're free to go." Just like that. But Jalen didn't move. He stared at them hard, like he wanted to speak, scream, cry, but no words came. Because it wasn't just over. He'd been humiliated, labeled, dehumanized. And worst of all, he knew there were thousands of others like him who never got a chance to be believed. But for now, freedom was the first step. The ride home was quiet. Malik drove. Ms. Morales sat in the back beside Jalen. His mom met him on the porch, ran out and hugged him so tight, he thought his ribs would break. She didn't say anything at first, just sobbed. Jalen let her. And when she finally pulled back, he whispered, "I'm okay." But he wasn't. Not really. The next few days, things moved fast. Malik filed a lawsuit against the department for unlawful arrest, racial profiling, and emotional damages. The media wanted interviews. Some kids at school cheered for him like he was a hero. Others avoided him, like he was toxic now. Jalen felt like he'd stepped into a new world. One where his skin was his warning label. One where the truth needed proof, and even proof wasn't always enough. But he wasn't backing down. Malik offered him an internship at his law firm for the summer. "You've got fired, Jalen," he said. "Let's turn it into fuel." Jalen accepted. And that night, he wrote in his journal, something he hadn't done in months. "They thought I was just another kid in a hoodie. But I know who I am. I'm not going to let this end with me." Because the journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. 2 weeks after the incident, Jalen sat at Malik Bishop's law office, looking out the window while the city buzzed below. Malik entered, dropping a thick folder onto the table. "We got something." Jalen turned. "Footage." Malik opened the folder and slid over a few printed screenshots. More than that. Surveillance from a different angle. A nearby electronics shop had cameras facing the street. "Take a look." Jalen leaned in. The image was grainy, but clear enough. The man in the hoodie, the real robber, was walking past the store entrance. His face was partially visible. Malik continued, "We enhanced the footage. Ran facial recognition. The guy's name is Damian Calloway. He's a repeat offender. 2 previous robbery charges. But here's the kicker." Jalen blinked. "What?" "He has a cousin on the force." Jalen froze. Malik flipped another document forward. "Officer Shane Calloway. Been on the force 5 years. Guess who wrote up your arrest report?" Jalen's mouth fell open. "No way." "Oh yes," Malik said grimly. "And guess who conveniently said the store clerk identified you as the robber?" Jalen felt the air leave his lungs. "Officer Calloway covered for his cousin." Malik nodded. "It's starting to look that way. Especially since the store clerk now claims he never clearly saw the face of the guy who held him up. Says he was pressured by the responding officers to go with his gut." Jalen's head was spinning. "They knew I wasn't the one. They arrested me anyway." Malik leaned in. "Jalen, this isn't just about you anymore. This is about corruption, collusion, and racism woven deep into this city's justice system." Jalen gritted his teeth. "What can we do?" Malik's eyes gleamed. "We hit back. Hard." The next morning, Malik filed a motion to unseal the entire body cam footage from the arrest, footage that had been mysteriously unavailable until then. Within 48 hours, the footage leaked. And it was explosive. The video showed Officer Shane Calloway speaking with his partner in hushed tones. "That's Damian's cousin, right? What's he doing in this neighborhood? Doesn't matter. He fits. It'll stick." Then, clear as day, they made their move. Pulled Jalen aside. Ignored the receipt. Ignored his protests. The public outcry was swift and furious. News anchors replayed the footage across every channel. Protesters flooded the steps of the police station. And for the first time since it all began, Jalen felt something stir in his chest, something more than fear, more than confusion. Fire. His voice mattered now. Malik turned to him later that night, over coffee and stacks of legal briefs. How do you feel about speaking publicly? We've been offered a spot on Truthline tonight, primetime interview. Jalen hesitated. He hated cameras. He hated reliving that moment. But then he thought about how many other kids wouldn't get this chance, wouldn't get this support, wouldn't be believed. He nodded. I'll do it. The studio was freezing, bright lights blinding. Jalen sat across from anchor Rebecca Stone, his palms sweating. She smiled gently. You ready? He nodded. The red light blinked on. Tonight, Rebecca began, we're joined by Jalen Brooks, the 16-year-old at the center of a now viral wrongful arrest scandal. Jalen, thank you for being here. He nodded again, then took a deep breath. I didn't want to be here like this, he began. But I have to be. He told the story, not just what happened, but what it felt like. The fear, the humiliation, the helplessness. Then he looked into the camera. I was lucky, he said. I had people who believed me. But what if I didn't? What happens to kids who don't have lawyers or cameras or trending hashtags? The segment aired nationwide. The next morning, the mayor held a press conference promising a full investigation into Officer Shane Calloway and the department's handling of the case. But Jalen knew better than to believe in words. He wanted change, real change. Days later, Malik received a call from a former officer who wanted to remain anonymous. I saw what happened, the voice said, and I know something that might help. He arranged a secret meeting. Jalen watched from a distance as Malik spoke to the man, nervous, glancing around constantly. When Malik returned, his face was pale but determined. He gave us a recording, he said. It confirms what we suspected. What do you mean? Officer Calloway not only arrested you knowing you were innocent, he was tipped off by his cousin, Damien. They had a plan. Jalen stared. So he let a criminal go free, just to protect family? Exactly. Malik slid a flash drive across the table. This is the nail in their coffin. Within 24 hours, an arrest warrant was issued for Damien Calloway. And 2 days later, Officer Shane Calloway was suspended pending further investigation. But the twist wasn't over yet. At a press conference called by the police commissioner himself, the city announced they were opening a civil rights task force to audit past arrests involving racial profiling, starting with Officer Calloway's entire record. Jalen watched it all unfold on TV, stunned. His name, his story, was now at the center of something much bigger. But the biggest twist of all came a week later. Jalen received a handwritten letter in the mail. No return address. Just a folded note that read, I'm sorry. I knew you weren't the one. But I was scared. They told me to say what I said. I hope someday you can forgive me. ML. Jalen's hands shook. ML. Mr. Lester. The store clerk. He'd finally told the truth. And with it, the entire narrative shifted. Jalen wasn't just a teen who had been wrongly accused. He was living proof of how dangerous silence could be and how powerful truth could become. The air had changed. Jalen could feel it. In the glances strangers gave him at the grocery store, in the way teachers addressed him with newfound caution, in the tight-lipped nods from officers when he passed by the station on his way to Malik's office. He wasn't invisible anymore. He wasn't just another black kid from the East Side. He had become something more. But with recognition came responsibility, and now, a choice. The city had offered him a formal settlement. $250,000. A quiet payout. No lawsuits. No further investigation. No admission of wrongdoing. Malik sat across from him in the office, eyes narrowed at the offer letter. It's blood money, he said bluntly. They want you to disappear. Jalen leaned back in the chair. That's a lot of money. It is, Malik agreed. And it could help you. Help your mom. Your future. Jalen nodded, but his throat was tight. He'd never had money like that waved in front of him. Never imagined he would. But the thought of taking it, of letting them off the hook, made his stomach twist. Do I have to decide now, he asked. No, Malik said, but soon. They're hoping you'll say yes before the press moves on. Jalen looked down at his hands. He'd never asked to be an activist, a symbol. He just wanted to be free. But something told him this moment wasn't just about him anymore. That night, he sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his old high school hoodie, the one he'd been wearing when the cops slammed him against the squad car, the one soaked in dirt and fear. He thought of his mom working double shifts to cover rent. He thought of his sister, still waking up crying some nights after watching him get taken away in cuffs. And he thought of Damian Calloway, still not charged, still walking free because the system was too scared to look in the mirror. The money was tempting. It really was. But no amount of cash could fix what had happened. He needed more than silence. He needed justice. At the next press conference, Malik stood behind him as Jalen stepped up to the podium. Reporters' cameras clicked. Microphones leaned toward him. He looked into the crowd, then spoke. I was offered a settlement. A lot of money. Enough to make this go away. A hush fell. He continued. But I'm not taking it. Gasps. Murmurs. I don't want hush money. I want change. I want Officer Shane Calloway charged. I want Damian arrested and tried like anyone else would be. I want every kid who looks like me to know that their life matters, even when they don't have cameras watching. His voice shook, but he didn't stop. And if that means going to trial, going public, putting everything on the line, then so be it. He stepped back from the mic. It was done. Later that week, Malik filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the city. The case was titled, Jalen Brooks versus the City of Charleston. It became national news overnight. Civil rights lawyers from all over offered to co-counsel. Activists rallied behind him. But the pressure also came heavy. Threats, emails, nasty letters slid under the office door. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Malik asked one night, the office quiet after hours. Jalen looked up. I've never been more sure of anything. The truth was, the system had already taken so much from him. His peace, his trust, his dignity. He wasn't going to let it take his voice too. Weeks passed. Depositions began. Internal Affairs reopened past complaints against Officer Calloway, 9 cases of misconduct, all previously buried. The narrative was shifting fast. Then, one day, Jalen's mom got a knock on the door. A young woman stood there, holding a small box. I'm Officer Calloway's sister, she said, eyes downcast. He doesn't know I'm here. But I found this. Inside the box, a burner phone, filled with texts between Damian and Shane. The messages were damning. He fits. Let's use him. Already got the clerk to nod. He's scared. Proof. Irrefutable. Jalen and Malik turned the evidence over to the DA's office. Within 72 hours, Shane Calloway was indicted. Official charges, obstruction of justice, misconduct in office, and conspiracy to falsify a police report. Damian was arrested shortly after. The city had no choice now. They issued a formal apology, passed a new bill banning unofficial ID procedures, and began mandatory retraining across the force. But none of it could undo what Jalen had endured. At least now it mattered. A month later, the court ruled in Jalen's favor. The city was ordered to pay $2.7 million in damages, not for silence, but for restitution. Malik turned to Jalen outside the courthouse, shaking his head in disbelief. You just made history, kid. Jalen smiled. We did. But even more than the money, it was the message that mattered. The truth had won. And Jalen, once a kid forgotten by the system, had changed it from the inside out. The courthouse steps were quiet now. The reporters had left. The crowd had dispersed. The shouts of protest and celebration had faded into the evening air. Jalen stood alone, looking up at the tall pillars that had once symbolized everything broken in the world. Today, they felt different. Not fixed, but cracking open. He took a breath and closed his eyes. He could still feel the weight of the handcuffs, still hear the laughter of the officers, still see the cold concrete floor where he'd slept that night. But now he carried something else, too. Power, truth, and purpose. Weeks later, he was back at his old school, not as a student, but as a speaker. He stood before a gym full of teenagers, some of whom remembered what had happened to him. Others only knew the headlines. I want to tell you something, he said, gripping the mic with steady hands. I was afraid. I thought the world would never see me as more than a suspect, more than a stereotype. But you know what changed that? He looked around at their wide eyes. I stopped trying to be invisible. I stopped shrinking. He paused, then added, they tried to silence me with fear, with shame, with money. But I learned that the truth, your truth, is louder than all of that. Somewhere in the back, a young boy nodded, his eyes shining with quiet recognition. Jalen didn't keep all the money. He gave part of the settlement to create a scholarship fund for kids who'd been falsely accused, who needed a second chance like he once did. He started mentoring at youth centers, telling his story not for fame, but to remind others. The system may be rigged, but people have power. Even broken ones. Especially broken ones. His mom cried the day the check came in, not because of the money, but because she saw her son, once caged by injustice, now walking with dignity. "I almost lost you," she whispered. Jalen held her tight. "You didn't. I'm right here." And Malik? He went on to launch his own civil rights firm, Brooks and Malik Legal, with Jalen as co-founder. They called it the firm for the voiceless and underestimated. Cases began pouring in. People started believing again that justice was possible, even when the odds were steep. Because one kid said no, said, "I want change," and meant it. So what's the lesson? It's this. Sometimes the system doesn't change until someone breaks it open from the inside. Sometimes the people you overlook, the ones insulted, mocked, pushed aside, are the very ones chosen to flip the story. Jalen never asked to be a hero. He just refused to be a victim. And that choice? It changed everything. Not just for him, but for all of us.